Hello. So this is not a teaching. There's no idea here that there's someone who has to be silent or peaceful or loving or still or open or surrendered or any of those things. There's nothing here that has any expectation or demand of anyone. Because as far as this is concerned, there isn't anyone. The whole idea that there's an individual that has to find something called enlightenment, as far as this is concerned, is a total illusion. So there's no teaching of any kind, and there's nothing available, there's nothing for sale, and there's nothing on offer to the apparent individual seeker. As far as this is concerned, all there is energy. This is just energy in this form. Energy takes every form. Energy is everything. Everything that's knowable and unknowable. And this is energy in this form. Energy is sitting down on a seat, appearing to be people in a room. The room is energy, the people are energy. Whatever's happening at the moment inside you is energy. Feeling warm, thinking, breathing, is just energy happening. And that energy is a magician. It could be anything. And because it's totally free and boundless, it can also be limited. It could be anything. It has nothing that influences it. There's no apparent God, no consciousness, nothing that's directing it. It's completely without intention. And it's absolutely wild and free. But when it becomes contracted, it seems to arise in the human body as a contracted energy, a limited sort of contracted energy. And when it arises and there's a sense of it as a tiny child, not before birth but after birth, as a tiny child, that energy that seems contracted creates the feeling of a self-awareness, a sense of there being someone in here, something in here. I'm in here. Oh, now I'm in here. There's just boundlessness and suddenly I'm in here. And as the child grows, so the sense of being a separate individual becomes stronger and stronger because, of course, that individual meets lots of other apparent individuals. So the sense of me, the self, the I, becomes stronger because it seems there's a lot of other me's and selves and I in the world. And the experience is, I am in here, and the world is out there, and it's happening to me. I am experiencing life seeming to happen. So, actually, there's a sense of separation from everything that's happening. That's what seems to happen. And the other very strong feeling that arises is, because I am real, I'm a real person, then everything else is real as well. The sky is real, trees are real, people are real. They're real people. They're happening to a real person here. And so, as the adult grows, or as the child grows into an adult, it also comes to believe that it has real free will and choice. And it lives in a real story. This is my story. I was born, I will live, and I will die. And I can influence that story, try and make it better. All those things arise in that feeling of contracted energy. So what we're discussing here, the suggestion here that we're talking about is the possibility that that whole construct of me is actually illusory. It's an artificial construct. And it arises out of the brain. The brain constructs an artificial identity because part of the brain sees the world as a separate energy from which it needs to protect itself and have a representative in the world. So it creates a separate artificial construct called me. And me takes on this identity and believes it's freewheeling and that it can make choices, as I say, about its life. The only problem with the me, the I, the self, the one difficulty with that is that actually living in a separate dualistic reality, which is what me does, because it's born into that reality, it experiences dissatisfaction. It doesn't feel happy in that sense of being apart. I am here, the sky is there. So the me never really sees the sky as it naturally is, or a tree, or another person. It sees and experiences everything through a veil of separation. So as the adult, the person grows into an adult, for most people that seems normal. Most people in the world think that this dualistic reality, in which there's a sense of separation, feels quite normal, so they just put up with it. But there are some people who are more open to looking deeper into that feeling, this sense of loss, this sense that there's something missing. So seeking arises. Seeking for a deeper fulfillment arises. And the seeker might look at Christianity, therapy, enlightenment, or anything else that makes it feel it can do something about that sense of loss. Because it's grown up believing that it has free will and choice. It's grown up believing I have to do it. I've done other things, I've passed exams, I've got a job or whatever, so I also have to find fulfillment. The only difficulty with that is that dreamt character, that individual who lives in that dualistic reality can only seek with what it can experience. It can experience as life. So it seeks in a dualistic way for that which is beyond dualism. It seeks for an object called fulfillment. And it turns that fulfillment into an object that it can have. And so all the effort that me, the I, the self puts in to finding fulfillment is utterly futile because it's looking for something it can never have. So the suggestion here is that actually what is sought has never gone away. It's never come and it's never gone away. It's the only constant there is. And the other thing about this sort of sharing that we're doing together is that, as I said at the beginning, the energy of this sort of communication we're doing together is absolutely without any sense of direction or any expectation or any idea that you, the person, the seeker, has to do anything or become anything. That energy is pointing towards that which is longed for, but it's not in any way suggesting that there is someone that can make an effort or go along a path to find what they're looking for. It's completely doesn't have that sort of energy. So it's a very free energy, and it's a bit of a frightening energy, because what can be discovered here this afternoon is that the situation for the seeker is utter, wonderful helplessness. And so, energetically, that contracted sense which is held in there, and talking about it together, because talking has an energy of its own. That talking and no expectation being there, that contracted energy can begin to melt back into the boundless energy, which is all there is. Any teaching, any idea that there is a someone who can choose to become enlightened or whatever, is pointing away from the natural reality, because it's trying to suggest, or it's a suggestion that there's something that can be done, is based on a false assumption. It's based on the false assumption that there is an individual and there is something else that the individual can find called enlightenment. So this is a very free-floating energy that goes on here. Feel free to just ask anything at all. The only thing is, you may not get the answer you're looking for.
The sense that the me doesn't exist and it's an illusion.
I didn't say it doesn't exist. For me feels real.
Right, yes, yeah.
But there's not a suggestion that it doesn't exist. The feeling of being me, obviously, for the me does exist.
Does exist. What is the one about what the nature of, sometimes you get this sort of an awareness starts to come through where there's a realisation that there's something wrong, the me doesn't exist in a way that we conventionally think it exists. And then this sense of it maybe isn't an illusion. What's the nature there? Is that coming from this sort of boundless energy that's sort of beginning to sort of shine through the delusion?
No, it isn't. Awareness is part of the me story. Awareness is what me has. Me, for instance, in very simple terms, there are people sitting on the floor here, on a seat, and there's an awareness of sitting on the seat. Me has an awareness of sitting on the seat. So that's what keeps me separate from the nature, the simpleness, the simplicity of what is, which is just sitting on the seat. Awareness is the accomplice of separation. When there's an awareness of a feeling of dissatisfaction about being separate, that's just still within the story. It's still another confirmation that the me is not happy and wants something more. When the me drops away, when the illusion of me is no more, what drops away with it is awareness. There's no need for the function of awareness to be there anymore, which keeps the me separate.
Right, maybe is it the use of the word awareness that maybe is the...
Well, not really, because awareness is a sort of knowing. I know I am a person, I know I'm sitting on a seat. Directly that arises, then there's a separation in the thing that knows from what is happening, which is sitting on a seat.
So if there was a sense of like a knowing that I'm not a person, that's a sort of same thing, that's part of the same story.
Yeah, if you know that you are a person, that's what keeps you within the dualistic reality of being a person.
And the knowing of not being a person?
Well, no, it's not possible, because when there is no me, there is only unknown. So-called liberation is unknown. There isn't anyone here, as far as this is concerned, that ever becomes liberated. When the person falls away, there is that which already is. This liberation. But there isn't anything that can know that. So there's absolutely nothing here available for the individual, even knowing liberation. It's awful. There's nothing.
So when it happens, you don't know it's happened?
No. Well, when it happens, there isn't anybody to know it's happened, but when it happens, it hits you right in the face.
Are you suggesting awareness is to do with a sense of identification?
Yeah.
I have a sort of sense of there's the cognizance, there's a processing part of awareness. And I was thinking about it this morning. I seem to have a sense of an awareness outside of that processing part, the
Well,
mind
but there
part.
doesn't have to be processing
I
for
think
there
the
to be
energy is alive,
cognizance.
it knows and it has a presence.
Yeah, but no, there is cognizance is a knowing, like consciousness of. Self-consciousness is knowing the self, self-awareness is knowing the
No, no,
self.
I'm
And
saying
knowing that-
self-consciousness is, yeah, that's the id part.
But even
I think
cognizance
the-
of that
I think there's
beyond.
a consciousness which is beyond
Beyond what?
beyond the mind. It's just an all-knowingness.
Yeah,
And I sometimes it's goes like a temporary.
yeah, okay. So
And
that
I
is
say
what's
I
called.
don't tap into that, but I know that.
Okay, so that's what's called self-realization, which is still a state within the story, that which knows everything, still knows everything, knows one, everything two. It's still within the separate world. No more sleep. Oh, with one hand.
That's one thing. Two more down there as well. There's more like
That's why this message is basically rejected. This is a very simple, very
You know, I'm
rare
not
message.
thinking, I'm
Most
working
people-
with.
I know, but most
sitting
people
with it.
want to know. Me wants to know because it wants to survive. It's the one thing that me is fond of is this message because it's about the absence of me, which is the absence of that which thinks it knows.
That's what you were saying about fragments.
Tony, there's a feeling that maybe energy has almost got more control the here now than me or the old me. There's more control, and it feels this fear of like you seem to live. You're already oddly, but I'm just trying to.
There's nothing to control. The only thing that has any control is me.
I'm just suggesting that I'm losing control. Yeah, and I'm just concerned what you said about have no understanding or knowing of authority, because like it just seems to be less fear as well with everything. I know fear can happen, but there just seems to be like
You've got a question? Me never has any control, it dreams it does. Me is a dreamer. It thinks it has.
okay, let's get going quickly. There's the intelligence, this intelligence. There is intelligence. I understand. Yeah, and I understand. There is just intelligence. Would you say?
Impersonal intelligence.
And when you say that the illusory self doesn't see the sky or the tree
As it naturally is.
as it naturally is, there seems to be an implication that that something can see it as it naturally is.
No, there isn't anything that can see it naturally as it is. There is just tree and sky. There isn't something else that could see it because it would be separate from tree and sky. When there is no one, there's just tree and sky. This is, as far as me is concerned, this is utterly impossible to comprehend. Just forget it. It's not. I'm not going to say it's difficult. It's not difficult. It's absolutely impossible. How can the me grows up and lives in the awareness of, so it can't comprehend that there could just be what is. There's just is. It doesn't need anybody to know it or see it. It just is.
Is this energy that you speak of
Oh.
continually communicate with itself?
Who does?
The energy that you speak of, that we're all part of, that we all are, does it just continually just communicate within its greater self? Is that...
It doesn't have any need to communicate. It is already everything, so it would find it difficult to find anything else to communicate. So this is we are talking about a mystery here. You know, I don't think it's incomprehensible what we're talking about, and it doesn't make sense. Is that all right?
This kind of sense of a contracted energy that I perceive as me, is it based on a belief?
No, it's absolutely beyond belief. Belief and the idea and the thought of me is just a superficial thing. The feeling of separation is in the whole cellular, is in all the cells in the body, a feeling of being separate. It comes and goes. In deep sleep it's not there. In the day and when you wake up, it suddenly has a sense of me again. It's like, if you've ever been terrified, have you ever been terrified? So when you're terrified, the whole body feels full of that. This is much more subtle, it's still there. It's a cellular energy. The thought, I am separate, or the belief I'm separate, is simply a superficial bit of news. There can be a memory as well, you know, I mean, the brain has a memory bank. But the basic feeling of being me is an energetic thing. I'm here. I'm here! Or not.
At times there's a sense of contraction, and other times a sense of boundlessness. Is there any importance in that?
There isn't any importance in anything. Except in the story. The story in me, things are important and significant. And when there's absolute freedom, there isn't anything that's important or significant, or that has any value. There's absolute freedom.
And within absolute freedom, will there be experiences of contraction and boundlessness?
Well, there are, apparently, but, those things that seem to happen. But anything that seems to happen within the whole is both real and unreal. The difficulty for me is that it feels that everything is only real.
There seems to be a preoccupation with this sense of contraction, with this sense of energetic,
Yeah.
and then a need to find that which is not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's me is constantly seeking. Right. And because it's constantly seeking that, it can't find that because that's all there is. So in a way, you know, what is longed for hides from me by being everything. It's the only thing in this room. It's whatever you feel right now, whatever you hear, whatever seems to be happening is that. It is that already. But we're so used to, or me is so used to looking for something somewhere that it can't comprehend that what it longs for is constantly all there is.
I'm alright that it's not knowing. Non-duality is I'm not going to say a state, but I can't think of another word. I know state comes and goes, but when you say it's a not knowing, it's a kind of sort of not
Unknown.
Unknown. It feels here, bearing in mind intuition possibly, it feels almost like a state of complete knowing to some degree.
Oh, right, okay. So that state of complete knowing is in the story.
Yeah.
There's nothing to know.
So you're saying this just all is?
It all is. It all is, man.
And that's it.
This is about something utterly simple, utterly ordinary, and completely obvious, as long as there is the need. This is happening to a lot of people now, and they ring up and say, Tony, this is amazing, because I can't tell you what this is, Tony. And I now see, I've been in your meetings, and I now see why you can't tell me what this is. I can't tell my wife what this is, or the dog, or anything. Because you can't, you're there going along in a separate world, and there's the floor, and then suddenly, it's just floor. It's like, bang, wow! wow! And everything is that. Everything is that. It's amazing. Very simple.
Tony, if knowing everything, sorry.
Is that all right?
It's fine. I'll say it's very difficult to ask questions then.
Yeah, well, you don't go. What we find in the meetings and in the residentials is it becomes more and more silent, not through any suggestion that it should, but of course it's like the questions run out because the me can't get anywhere because there isn't any way to get to. There isn't any way to get. Yeah, if you go to a teaching, you could ask all sorts of questions about the way you sit, or whether you should be aware of this, or do that, or meditate. It all goes on the business of seeking. Then this business of seeking simply collapses. And when there's a silence, it's like checkmate.
So, just the not knowing thing and the knowing thing. If you say total knowing is in the dream, what's the difference between total knowing in a dream and an intuition? Because
No,
you
intuition
can't
is
know anything as such, it just feels
just
like
to know is to know, but intuition is beyond knowing in that sense.
Where does the fear arise from? There's a sense, there's a sense of kind of self-consciousness or a fear or something's wrong.
Yeah.
To-
Because that lives in anxiety.
Yeah.
Because as far as that's concerned, this is separate. And there's something subtly threatening about it. Not all the time, but
No.
yeah.
So Tony, when it is like seen that this is all there is, and there's still like a residue of fear, it means that there is a residue of me, basically, the me structure that is.
Not necessarily. There can be fear after liberation, so-called liberation. There could be anything after liberation, but there isn't anyone that has it any longer. It's the end of somebody having fear. They can just be fear. So there's no longer anybody who has an investment in it or an idea that it shouldn't be there and it must be got rid of. Nothing is denied. Everything is what it is.
But that fear is just a feeling. It's
Sorry?
just an
It's
experience.
not really. There isn't anything that sees the fear. There's just fear.
Sorry?
There's nobody that sees the fear.
Yeah.
It's just fear.
And no reason to get rid of it, no particular
Well,
sort of
who would
influence.
get rid of it?
Well, yeah.
No, but who would get rid of it? And how do you do that? You go back to a therapist and she tells you to honour your fear of an It's just, that's all over. That whole algebra of how to is finished. There's no how to.
But fear is an interpretation of an event or of an energy.
It can be if there's a me there. Me interprets
But
fear.
then if there is no me there is no fear.
No,
Because there's nothing to interpret that energy or event as fear.
No, but fear is also an energy. There can be, when there's everything, there's energy, so there can be fear.
But it's only classed as fear when something calls it fear.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah. So if there's no me, who's to
Well,
say
there's
it's
no
fear?
name of fear, but the energy of fear.
The energy
still
which,
there.
I see what you're saying, would be interpreted as fear is still there.
You see, me's always analysing, oh, that's fear, so I'm just going to see Mrs. Ruddock, and she'll tell me how to do it. You know Mrs. Ruddock? Don't go on.
That's the sort of the me that would take, you know, say, look, fear happens, happiness happens,
Yeah.
but normally the me would take ownership of
No,
it.
the me takes ownership of everything. It's like a big sticky bum.
Yeah. So that's what the me, and obviously these things are just happening.
Of course, the only takes ownership of it, talking about stickiness, it sort of plays with it and keeps it, so it's all sticky. When there's no me, fear arises and falls away, the sun arises and falls away, there's nothing holding on to anything anymore. It
It
just
creates a
is what
story
it
of-
seems to be.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful sort of amazing feeling. For no one.
Because I suppose there might be this sense, mightn't there, in some quarters that if sort of so-called enlightenment happens, suddenly, you know, you become this perfect
No, this is bullshit.
thing that there's no emotion.
This is the mind. would like a perfect being. There are some people around who, if you go to India or somewhere, they look as though they like that all the time. Me is very naughty. It can appear to be an enlightened person who's in permanent bliss. I think permanent bliss sounds deeply boring.
What's the drive to seek that? Not to hold on. What's the drive not to seek that and just to let it happen? What? Do you see
Well, as
it?
far as the me is concerned, it can only seek. It is seeking. Me is seeking. Me is dualism. Me is seeking. Me is separation. It can only long to come home.
So we have to allow this to happen without partaking in
No,
it.
but you can't. That's the other awful thing. You can't allow it to happen. I'm now allowing it to
It almost sounds like you've fallen upon it by chance or luck from that.
Well, in a sense, of course, there is no such thing as freedom or enlightenment. It just is already. It's only that which is separate from it, which has any energy to try and find it. That's why I said at the beginning of this meeting, this is not a teaching about you finding something. There's nothing to find. And there's no one to find.
Tony, you say that energy has no understanding of authority, you said that a long time ago. Energy doesn't understand authority, like I said before, is that or something like that? Yeah.
Well, no, energy is just free.
Okay.
And then if there's a contracted energy, then the me would understand authority. There is no authority.
Okay.
Only in the story of me.
Does the energy have any type of, I know there's no relationship.
No, there's
I
no
know,
relationship.
I understand that, but does it understand itself being in the body as it
No, it
has
doesn't
me there
understand
as
it.
well as the energy in the body, and therefore, you know, has a lack, as it sort of
It doesn't have anything.
Is the energy of fear,
The energy of fear.
in the arising of it as it is it useful for anything? Or
No, not
is that
sure. There isn't anything that's useful.
useful?
No, really.
Really?
Everything that seems to happen is completely without purpose or meaning. Except in the story. In the story, this is purposeful, that has meaning, and that's useful. Because the me is trying to get somewhere, so it needs a purpose. That's, you know, God didn't create man, man created God. Because it's a purpose, and it has meaning. That's the imprisonment of being in this separate world, looking for guidance from something greater.
They seem to have size or volume or things.
Sorry.
Things seem to have size or volume, like trees. But the energy of a tree, as it is, seems to have a space or volume.
Space. A tree is just no thing. Tree. Everything comes out of nothing, or everything is nothing, appearing to be what it is. So tree is the appearance of tree. It's happening. It seems to be happening. It's not real. It's real and unreal.
So there's no boundary.
No. Do you like that?
Yeah. That's like.
Is liberation the cessation of the story?
Yeah, in a way, the liberation is the nearest you can get to describing the sudden release from the imprisonment of being in the separate dualistic experience. I'm a separate, so I experience dualism, separation. I'm in this sort of limited life. The I, the self-life, is very limited life within a contracted energy. When suddenly that's released, you could call it liberation from that imprisonment. But the imprisonment isn't real, of course. All the time you're in it, it feels like it is.
Acknowledging you have a reality of being. Or
No.
No?
No. Other question? No, I don't. There isn't anything here. There is only energy, life energy. There's nobody that has anything anymore. This is not, there's nobody doing this. with what's happening,
Okay.
apparently.
I just, please, I'm struggling because I can, on one hand, I can hear when I say I.
Yeah,
That's all right, you know. I'm limited by language, which is outside.
oh, so am I. So is this.
I have a perception of what you're saying. You call this the open secret, and I think that's, you know, it's just, of course. At the same time, I exist in a, you know, or I have a reality of a body.
You believe?
Yeah. Well, I believe I've got this storyline running.
Yeah.
I'm interested because I was used by you.
No, use I use I. It's a figure of speech.
So,
There's no I, but use I. Go on, go for it. There's nothing wrong with anything. Use I.
well, yeah, okay. I'm existing in what appears to be a paradox. And the moment I acknowledge that there's a complete paradox there.
But acknowledging the paradox
I
is just you acknowledging.
I guess maybe that's the fear or whatever. How do I live?
No, you don't.
But I don't.
You don't live. How do you live? You're back in the. How do I do it?
Yeah.
You don't do it. You've never done it. There's only life. And within that is the dream of me doing that. It's stunning. It's stunning. There's a chair over here. There's a chair over here, or you can sit on my lap.
Johnny, are you dating?
Am I?
Dating.
Dating? What are you doing this evening? No, I'm not. I'm flirting.
Tony, I've read or seen a clip where you've talked about meaning and being,
Yeah.
and that seemed to strike a chord.
Yeah.
Would you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, so in a sense you could say that what's being talked about here is being recognised here. Because this is where this all comes from anyway. This is what this is. And then there can be a glimpse, there could be a seeker, and energetically someone who's still looking at something. And then suddenly that energy is not there anymore, and there's no me, or self, or I. There just is what is. This is called a glimpse, or a satori, or whatever you like. And then it seems, not every time, sometimes nobody comes out the other side. But most times somebody comes out of the other side, like the seeker seems to come back, the me comes back and goes on. But in some way or other, it's never quite the same as it was before. And so there's a dancing in and out of being and being. Me being, and then one day there's just being, and being doesn't come back. It's like light and darkness, like light enters the apparent darkness of this. And it's somehow always lighter. And then more light, more light.
The meaning aspect seems to be in a struggle, and it's like, you know, addiction, things like that, all this contracted state, and wanting to escape this contracted state through addictive behaviours and all this kind of thing. I mean, there's this sense that there's a path to escaping these addictions that someone treads.
But the greatest addiction of all is me, of course. But the mind would all, you know, the person going out would come to believe there's a path to not being me. But the more they tread it and the harder they try, the bigger the me gets. It's, because it's looking in a dualistic world for something that's completely dual. It's looking for something that can't be found.
Could prayer be said to be an addiction?
Sorry?
Prayer, an addiction?
Well, it sort of can be part of the idea that there's somebody to pray to, like a god or a higher energy, can become addictive. And also, you know, it becomes so powerfully addictive in the world we see today that if your God isn't my God, I'm going to shoot you. That's what goes on. In this world we live in today, the opposites can become more extreme. But certainly they're to do with an addiction of some sort. And the me is addicted to itself, and it's addicted to finding some sort of liberation.
So it knows it's not really where it's meant to be.
No. Everyone in this room knows that. This isn't it. This isn't it. Where is it? Where is it?
Why does it exist?
Why?
Yeah.
Who's asking that? There's no reason why it exists. It just seems to exist. It only appears to be. There's no reason for anything because everything is completely without meaning or purpose. That's its freedom. If it had a purpose, it would be going somewhere else. It doesn't need to go anywhere else because it's already complete.
So the me is a trap.
Me's in a sort of trap, but it's an illusory trap.
So once that illusory trap falls away, what drives you to function?
Oh, nothing. No, nothing drives you to function. Actually, it didn't before, but you believed it was as a me. When the me drives away, there's nothing to drive anything. There is only what happens. This is not driven to come here today and help anybody or do it because there isn't anybody to help. So there's no agenda here or motivation for this. This is what's happening. This morning, you could say, although there isn't this morning, this was eating breakfast, and that's just the same as it. That's what's happening. This is what's happening. It's no more momentous than eating breakfast, because it all is what is.
So,
there's nowhere to go, so there's nothing that drives this.
I get a flavour of what you're saying. I'm just wondering.
So are things actually happening?
Only apparently. Everything in this room is only an appearance out of nothing. It's not really happening. It only appears to be happening.
So all our questions are just pointless.
Utterly. Do you want to tell me? There are visitors. Utterly in a way pointless because there isn't anything to question. But the energy that's here is taking the question and responding to it from the point of view that there's nowhere to find and no answer to the question and nowhere to get to. That's a totally different energy to a teaching energy. A question asked to a teacher will get a response from a sense of self being in here who wants to help a self there find something better.
So
that energy simply doesn't exist here.
So a teacher buys into my story by giving an answer.
Sorry?
A teacher buys into my story by giving an answer that thinks that what I want to hear.
I didn't get the first part, but this is just a response
So
out of nothing.
you're not a teacher.
No.
I could just get as much from this experience than sat on my bed watching you on a YouTube screen.
Absolutely.
Why do you invite questions if,
I don't invite them, they seem to have.
You said at the beginning if there's any questions,
Yeah,
then you
well,
sat down.
It's just, if there are any questions, isn't an invitation to ask questions. I mean, there's often a lot of time when there aren't any questions. In this sort of setting, we've got a lot of new people here maybe, then you seem to get, impressions seem to arrive. It doesn't matter if they do or not.
Coming back to functioning, that's what I was asking. Is it, what is it, like, who functions? Is
Nobody
it
functions.
memory? Is
So,
program?
in the
or
story of me,
what?
yes, but in
Yeah, like when there
me
is
isn't there,
liberation, yeah.
nobody functions.
Nobody functions.
No, this
So-
isn't anybody functioning.
Yeah, but there are activities to perform during,
No,
in
because that's
time,
an
you know what I
intention.
mean? Like
No.
since you wake up until you go to sleep. Survival, for example, or you have to eat.
You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. It's what happens. This is just what's happening. There isn't anybody bringing it about. It's what's happening. There isn't anybody asking that question. But all the time there's a sense of me in there. It thinks it's bringing it, it's asking that question through its self-awareness. There's no self-awareness here. There's just what's happening. Apparently. And it has no importance or meaning, so it's completely effortless. There's no idea here of trying to get somebody somewhere, so there's no effort, it's just whee!
You said intuition was beyond knowing. Could you say more about it? Is that joining the flow of energy?
Only that somewhere knowing is linked to some sort of library or a collection of known facts in the mind. Intuition is beyond anything like that. It's immeasurably free, and somehow you could say that a knowing arises out of it, but it isn't coming from a known energy. Intuition is like when somebody walks into a room, something doesn't work out that they have a certain energy, it's just obvious. Intuition recognises that, but not from any held known facts.
So what is it that recognises?
No one recognises that. So or even when there's a me, intuition is functioning. It's very akin to what we're talking about here. It comes out of nowhere and immediately recognises what seems to be happening. When the me is no more, it becomes even more powerful, or its recognition is wider and deeper.
And how does it relate to the energy that you're talking about?
It is energy being intuitive. There's no relationship.
But in like meaning and being, Tony, in meaning and being, there must be then a mixture of knowing and intuition as well.
Absolutely.
Am I right in saying then that there's no such thing as death?
Yeah, absolutely. There isn't anything, because there isn't anyone, nobody dies. Now, this is very similar to what we're talking about. So, in ordinary life, let's presume there's a me in the body. The me lives in the body, the self, the I, seems to live in the body until the point of death. So all the time there's an I in the body, it thinks it's going to die. I am going to die. Right? At the point of death, and it's absolutely got to be that point of real death, of the ceasing of the functioning of the body, what then arises is a recognition that there was never anybody that died. Because there never was anybody. But by then it's too late to tell anybody else. The strange thing is, if that happens in the living body, which is death, I mean we're talking here about the death of something, the death of me, the death of separation. It's the same thing as actually what we call death. If it happens in the living body, there's, at the point when the me is no more, there is a recognition, not by anyone, there's just a recognition that there never was a separate me to drop away. But it's still also too late, because then that which is no more a person can't tell anybody else what that's like. I can't tell you what being is. it can't be described, it's unknown. Like we can only share together the way the story of me seems to happen, and the possibility that there's something beyond the self. But I can't, this can't describe what being is. Not what is.
At the point of death, is me as energy, does that change into something?
No, it just isn't there anymore. It never was real. All the time there's something in there who's real, they think they're really going to die. There is something called death which is absolutely real. At the point of death, when there's no longer a functioning body, then there's a sudden recognition that there was never anything that was real, including me, to die. There is only what is. It's liberation. You could say it's liberation. Every death is liberation. Of course, regardless of what went on.
I can understand that the I disappears, and what was the I, because I've no other way of speaking about it, becomes part of everything.
No, well, it doesn't really become part of it. It is already, yeah, right, you go on with that. Yeah. It's energy that is just, seems to be contracted.
Correct, yeah. So what happens to this?
What, that?
This energy, yeah. This must be energy.
Oh, the
in a
same
certain
thing.
shape.
The body seems to be active and then it isn't, and it becomes dead meat, which is just energy in that form. The body, don't forget, the body's got nothing to do with it anymore, because the body's just another thing. The body's like the wall, it's just a thing. The problem with me is that it thinks it's its body, this is my body. It takes ownership of the body and calls it its own body. Body's just meat and bones.
And you're saying that that's caused by a contraction?
The sense of the me is contracted energy in the body, and then the me lays claim to being the body. This
Why
is
does
my,
that happen?
no reason, it just owns it. It thinks it is the body. I am, this is my body. This is my wife, this is my body, this is my house, this is my enlightenment. It wants to own everything because it actually, in the end, longs for nothing and everything. So it tries to own what. Have you noticed that? In the world we live in today, what you're watching is me going mad, trying to own everything.
It's all communication manipulation then.
No, communication is communication. There can be manipulation in it. If there's a communicator that wants to get something.
Every time I speak, am I just not fulfilling my addiction to me and speech?
No.
You know, would I just be better shutting up?
Well, but can you shut up as well?
So Tony, so we need the body in a way to recognize that contraction. So
Well, nothing is needed, but it so happens that contraction arises in the body.
right, so without body there will be contraction.
No, because there isn't anything else in the whole of this that is contracted. So dogs and grass don't have a sense of contraction or a sense of having a separate identity. They just are. The only thing that has a sense of identity is in the human form. True awareness, self-awareness is only a human condition. Because apparently neuroscientists have discovered that the human brain is sophisticated enough to abstract a sense of separate identity. Nothing else has that sophisticated brain. And they've also obviously proved in their own way that the idea of there being an individual with free will and choice is totally illusion. They've already experimented, shown that the person doesn't choose this or that, choice happens, and then about 2 or 3 seconds later, the person claims that it's their choice.
What do you mean choice happens?
Sorry?
What do you mean choice happens?
So
What do you mean choice happens?
a apparent choice to have tea or coffee seems to happen. There isn't anybody that chooses it. But the me believes it does. So, all right, so somebody comes to you and says, would you like tea or coffee? Or anyone. And the neuroscientists have discovered that the brain has a committee meeting about tea or coffee. I mean, it's almost, you can't measure the speed at which that happens. And then it tells the me to come in. If there's a me energy in the body, it tells the me to come in and say to it, now you can announce to the world that you're having tea. And that's been proven in all sorts of ways. Me doesn't make a choice. The brain apparently makes a choice, like a computer. And then the me thinks that it's making that choice. When there's no me, there's just apparent choice. Direct. Boom.
But no choice happened. Because it's apparent.
Choice apparently, like everything else, it seems to happen.
So that it's apparent, it's not.
Yeah, everything is only apparent.
And you just said there's a big difference between instinct and choice.
Between?
Instinct. Like a primal instinct, let's say, to survive.
Or instinct?
Instinct. The choice. So the choice comes from the me, or we think...
No, not necessarily, no. It doesn't have to be a me, but there to be a apparent choice. There's nobody choosing. Instinct is like intuition, it's a natural function.
Okay, it's like a primal thing.
So this being and what is, that I can certainly get in touch with it, is it the same as somebody else's being, or just their being what is?
Well, there isn't anybody. You can't get in touch with what is. Me can't know what is. It always lives in what will be. What's next? What is only obviously apparent to no one.
My question is there multiple what is for all of us?
Well, in a way, everything is what is. So you could say there's a hell of a lot of it. Well, it's tricky as long as you think of it in terms of spatial measurement. There is no term, there is no spatial measurement. Well, they're only it's very simple in another way. You're sitting on a seat, aren't you? Okay, so all the time there's a me there, it's aware of sitting on a seat. I'm aware of sitting on a seat. When it's not there, there's just what is. Which is, you could try and describe, and this is where we get to this thing where what is can't be described. But if you just said it's the weight of your bum on a seat, or not your bum, it's the weight of your bum on a seat. Yeah, is that there right now? So it's on its own, it simply is what it is. With you there's something that thinks it knows that. I tell you, the difference is immeasurable. The me lives in a boring old dusty world where it's, I've sat on a seat so many times before, what's bloody special about that? When you're there, when you're not there anymore, give me a ring.
So a baby has no sense of me.
No, a tiny baby is boundless, there's no sense of life.
Yes.
But when the mother walks in, the mother could walk in 100 times, and then one day the mother walks in and this contracted energy is aware of something entering the hole, which then brings about a sense of someone here that's aware of something entering the hole. That's separation.
Yeah, the baby on being born is yelling, screaming.
Oh, no, yeah, but that's life. Life, that's not anything other than life happening. Hunger, after liberation, hunger can happen. It's the story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve is an allegory about what we're talking about here. That is, that Adam and Eve are in paradise, so there's boundlessness, and then they eat the apple of knowledge. I know I am eating this apple. I know I am a person. And directly that happens.
So a distressed baby, there's no one distressed, it's just
No, it's just
I haven't quite got the question, but something, when you're talking about a baby, it doesn't have this sense of me here. Or you're talking about a dog in the grass or whatever.
Everything other than the human is just in being.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're describing, it sounds like you're inferring that's the same as what's happening with the person who was formerly Tony Parsons.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony Parsons died.
It's something about that sounds. How is that similar to the state of the baby's in? But it can't be just the same thing.
Well, it is. In a sense, it's boundlessness.
But there was formerly a sense of self here. With the baby, there hasn't been yet a sense of self. So what's the difference in those?
I don't know. I can't answer that. There isn't really any difference, except that the adult can communicate in some way or other about this, or can communicate. In a way, you could say the difference is that it's now recognised that there never was anyone, whereas in the tiny child there isn't anyone there is no recognition of that because there never was anyone. It's something that seems to happen for no reason. Yeah, but don't forget it happens to everyone, because actually there isn't anyone. Well, although people live in the dream of being a me, when they die there's no me. So,
You talk about the brain and the body handling life.
doing what with life?
Handling life.
Handling, apparently, yeah.
So it does accrue how to do that.
The brain accrues a library and takes on conditioning which it responds to. The me takes ownership of what the brain has and calls it its own.
Yeah. So there is
So the me believes it's driving a car, whereas actually it's just driving a car.
Yeah. So there is a build-up of like a character.
Yeah. Well, there is a build-up of a sense of a knower.
Yeah. That the me adopts.
I'm the knower.
Yeah.
And without me, they can't be functioning, which is the most amazing illusion there is. Because when there's no me functioning, it happens not only, obviously, very naturally, but also it has nothing in the way telling it how it should drive a car, sit on the seat, or
yeah.
The me is a judge, becomes sort of judge of what's happening.
Yeah, I had somebody described it here once before. Quite often people who play the piano for a long period of time, they can momentarily, the me fall back or disappear. There's nobody playing the piano.
Absolutely. I think that happens to quite a lot of people, athletes, musicians, artists, even road sweepers. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because in the end, it's just what's happening.
Yeah.
So the me is not permanent.
Oh God, no, it comes and goes. And every night in deep sleep, there's no me in deep sleep.
Because there are moments like I could be doing any activity and I'm not really aware of anything, just doing it. Then the me comes in and says, where was I in that moment? So
if you ask the musician when they're free floating and they're just music, if they start to think about what they're doing, it can happen. The mind comes in and says, are you doing this right?
So where is it? It's just the mind trying to be persistent or existing. It's like, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yes, I meditate and I get a nice feeling from it.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of kind of like some expansion. Does this activity have anything to do?
Absolutely nothing at all. It's like eating ice cream, it's just nice to experience. But you experiencing a state that's not pleasant. It's got nothing to do with this. This is absolutely beyond pleasantness.
energies in different states of contraction?
There are 7.2 billion realities. Each one is unique, and the one sitting next to them cannot know that reality. Is that your boyfriend? He doesn't know what you experience when you eat spaghetti. You'll never be able to tell him. You could describe different things about it, but he doesn't know. He can't know that reality.
So we have different energies in different states of contraction. Does the state of contraction change? For example, when you fall asleep,
Yeah.
the contraction.
More, yeah. In deep sleep, there is no contraction.
None at all. So that comes and goes in a day. It shrinks and grows in a day.
You need a rest from me. If you don't get sleep, after a while, you'll go balmy, because me is such a crazy activity.
Are there different functions? Are there different functions of being, dependent on the state of contraction that's happening?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering about evil and things, bad things.
About
evil and
well,
bad things.
in the world of me, there is evil and good. When the me collapses, there's no such thing as evil or good.
But if there's a serious state of contracted energy, I'm wondering if evil then is a function of that.
Well, it seems real to the me.
Right.
The me lives in opposites, so there's good and evil, better and worse. When that collapses, there aren't any opposites. Moral behaviour and ethics are a creation of me, which wants to make its story more comfortable. They have no value at any time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be freedom. This is the only anarchy.
When I'm driving a car, there's an awareness after a bit, an apparent awareness that I wasn't aware of anything for 5 minutes.
It can be that, or it can be daydreaming. Sometimes when you're driving, this blonde appears in
Could it be that my contraction, or the contraction reduced in that time when...
Yeah.
And then there would just be...
What is?
Driving.
Just going back to what we was discussing just now about musicians losing themselves. I paint.
Yeah.
And it frequently happens that, and I think I could count probably around about 10 times, where I've gone to the studio at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and the next time I've known it's been 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and I've not known anything about the time passing, and yet somehow I recollect making decisions during that time.
Yeah, you would think you are making them, they're just actually being made. There isn't a me making them, it feels it is, but there's just that blue, no blue, it's just what happens.
Yeah, and I also played blues harmonica.
Go on.
And the biggest single worry is that I'll start thinking once I start thinking, because it's finished.
Yeah. It's the same with making love. If the energy is there, then there can become a time when you're making love where there is no one making love, there's just making love.
Yeah, it just is.
There's a complete lostness, unless one of you thinks something. Am I doing this right?
Would you say meditation retreats and meditation retreats as such a hindrance to what you're talking about?
Sure, there is no hindrance. You know, meditation is like anything else. It's like eating dinner. It's something that's happening. The idea in the mind is that somehow meditation is either good for you or it will lead to something. That's where the ship hits the fan. It's just nothing that's happening. There isn't anywhere to go to. Directly, there's an intention in it, and you're back in the story. I'm going to get there when I've meditated for 3 weeks. But it's like anything, there isn't a hindrance, there isn't anything in the way, And there isn't anything that is not in the way. They both are simply ones. All there is what's happening.
The state of non-being that you describe, does it affect your physical body? Are you healthier now than when you were in need?
Yeah, there's certainly two things that seem to happen. One is a relaxation seems to happen, because being in the world of me is a tense sort of thing. You know, there's a tension and an anxiety, so there's a relaxation. And the other thing is there's a huge amount of energy expended in being me. People die of it. And suddenly that energy isn't used in that way to present yourself in the world. There's no self-consciousness, there's no effort to please anyone anymore, it's all over. The games are all over, and then there's a huge amount of energy in the body.
So it improves your health?
Is that why you're here? Can you? So somebody made a noise.
What led you to the point where Tony disappeared?
Well, nothing led me to the point where there was no me. Previously to that, Tony Parsons was a seeker, not a very good one. Because somewhere there was a sort of laziness there. And also the main reason was that Tony Parsons didn't really respect the idea, or didn't really believe in the idea that Tony Parsons had to become better, or change, or be still, or all that other stuff that was incredible. So there was a sense in going to a teacher, that what they were teaching you was completely beside the point. And the idea that you had to self-inquire, or meditate, or whatever, in order to reach somewhere else just didn't work here. So, but there wasn't anything that led me to that. Didn't lead me to this, because that was still the me. Still had a sort of belief about this whole thing. I was there, and then I wasn't. It had nothing to do with being good, of course, because I was never very good at being good. So it had nothing to do with any quality that I thought I had.
It seems to be like a pressure in a lot of kind of organisations and such like spiritual traditions. Like if I'm a good disciple or whatever, and if I'm seen to be good, and if this person perceives me as being doing well, then I'll get rewarded.
Yeah. It's all about, all teachings have to obviously come from the sense of a self here that wants to help other people, very sincerely wants to help other people. But basically there is still some sort of energetic sense of directing that person or trying to move them in a certain direction. So there's a sort of expectation with all teachings about the person that's being taught. Here there obviously is no expectation at all, because there isn't anybody here.
absolutely no influence over what is happening, but apparently, in a me, it would appear as though there is cause and effect.
Yeah, totally. I
Yeah?
mean, me
That's
believes in
very
cause and effect, like it thinks a tree is real. It also thinks that cause and effect and my free will are real things.
But
So
any
I'm-
thoughts, whether they're negative, positive, within the story, has actually no influence.
Yeah.
To
Nothing
what's
has,
actually
nothing
happening.
has any influence in that which already is. And it's tea time.